This is continuing coverage and the trial of Richard Merritt from the Hidden Killers podcast on the True Crime Today network.
Judge, on the break, we were speaking to your assistant, and there's an issue that maybe the live stream is still streaming everything in the courtroom after the camera's off.
I think there's some kind of a delay, because I noticed that too. There may be a delay in what's actually being presented versus what's happening. So are you looking at it online?
No, it's just the information that I received that during breaks there was recording.
Okay. So tell me some more.
I received information from your staff attorney, Ms. Campbell, to inform me that families were watching live stream and that they were aware that there was talks or the mics were recording during the breaks without being shown.
Okay. During which breaks?
The hot mics that they would hear, the microphones from the courtroom on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
During breaks.
All right. Well, are you saying that, okay, so I'm trying to understand, are you saying that it's being recorded and broadcast on the website, or?
I'm not sure if the website was judge.
Okay. Do you know anything about this?
No, ma'am. Anytime you dismiss the room, we actually mute the audio and just put the camera in the envelope.
All right. And what about that big microphone you have there?
Correct. So when I mute here, it mutes that sound up there.
Okay.
So when you walked in, I just turned the sound back on.
All right. Okay. Well, we talked about this before we started. You guys need to be careful about these mics, because I can tell you that I can hear too up here some of the things that are being said at the tables. So these microphones are very, very sensitive. So you just need to be mindful of that and what you have up on your computers and things like that as well. So, okay. All right, Ms. Potts, your witness here.
She is.
I'm sorry, sir. If you'll tell me your name, please.
Patrick.
What's your last name, Patrick?
I'm sorry. It's Paul Patrick.
Okay, Mr. Patrick.
Yes,
so, Mr. Patrick, I'm going to ask you to put the camera down for this next witness who's coming in to testify, just for this part of the hearing, so that I can make a determination as to whether I'm going to require that the rest of her testimony be on camera as well.
Okay. Can I just face it in this direction? Is that okay?
Yes. Yes. Do you want to have him face it this way, bring her in, and then have him turn it? Because she got to walk, or she can walk behind you. She can walk behind you. Okay.
If I could just have a minute to let her know what's going on.
Yes.
Richardson, KELLYRICHARDSON.
Kelly, you have requested that the camera not record your image. How do you believe it would affect you if you were to be shown on video?
I have fears that this will have an adverse impact on my future job prospects and potential collaborations and partnerships, publications, studies I could be involved in.
Your Honor, do you have any other questions?
Can you tell me a little bit about what you're studying and how you think this may impact you going forward?
If I'm involved in any future research,
Okay.
or if there's any potential clinical trials, things like that, having a more publicized image might affect. I'm afraid that I'm looking for jobs. Might form impressions from this experience that don't necessarily reflect my job qualifications.
Okay. And what is it that you're currently studying? You don't have to tell me where, but just in general, what is it that you're studying? What are you working towards?
I study disease diagnostics and different modeling techniques.
Okay. And what is the degree that you're seeking?
A PhD.
Mr. Queen, you have any questions?
No question, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you want to tell me
No, ma'am.
on this issue? No? Okay. All right. If you'll step out for just a moment, please. Okay. I just checked the clerk's file just to see if any objections have been filed by anyone or any other parties, and I don't see anything that's been filed into the clerk's file for me to consider. So, if the defense doesn't have any objection to the request, then I would grant the request and just ask Mr. Patrick that we continue what you just did, which is to allow her to walk behind you and turn the camera this way while she's testifying. Okay. But the audio will still be, can still be recorded and can be broadcast. Okay, thank you. All right, you ready to bring the jury out?
Yes, Your Honor.
Just tell me the Richard transcript.
Judge,
Yes.
is it okay if I don't show her face or shoot her hands below?
No, I would prefer that you didn't.
Okay.
Y'all may be seated. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. We are ready to continue on with the testimony. The state will call us next witness.
The state calls Kelly Richardson.
Swear. Okay, you can lower your hand. Would you please state your name?
Kelly Richardson,
All right. What city do you live in, Miss Richardson?
Nashville.
Okay. And in what area, general area of town in Nashville do you live?
In Midtown, near Music Row in Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Ms. Richardson, can I get you to scoot up a little bit closer to that microphone and speak up a little bit?
Yes, Your Honor. Pardon? Near Music Row in Vanderbilt.
Are you familiar with the defendant, Richard Merritt?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you meet him?
I met him on an online dating app
And approximately when was that?
in July of 2019.
And how did he introduce himself to you? What name did he tell you was his name?
McMalvo.
Okay. Can you spell that for the jury, please?
MICKMALV. I think he spelled it MALVEAUX.
Where did he tell you he was from?
He said he was from Louisiana.
Did he say what part of Louisiana?
I don't remember if he told me he was originally from New Orleans or if he just indicated that he had been living there recently.
Did he tell you what kind of work he did?
I think he said it was marketing.
Okay. And did you, before you met in person, how did you communicate with him?
We texted back and forth using the app.
Okay. And was that the online dating app that you're discussing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 73. Would you please tell the jury what this exhibit is?
This appears to be a screenshot of one of our conversations using the dating app.
And have there been any material alterations or deletions? You can flip through it if you'd like.
Not that I can tell. It looks like it's from my phone, judging from everything on top.
Do you believe that that's a screenshot that you took from your phone?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time I move to admit State's Exhibit 73.
Any objection? Admitted.
I'm going to allow the jury to read some part of this exhibit for a moment.
So what did Mick Malveaux say he was doing in the Nashville area?
He said that he was writing and that he was staying with a cousin and that he was a bartender.
Did he say how long he had been in that area?
I don't remember at this point.
And did you ever meet him in person?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see that person who identified himself to you as Mick Malveaux here in court today?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you identify him by what he is wearing and where he is sitting?
He's the person sitting in the center of the defense's table.
Okay. I'd ask that the record reflect that Ms. Richardson has identified the defendant.
Record shall so reflect.
Approximately when did you meet him in person?
In July of that 2019.
And what did he look any different then than he does now?
It's significantly different.
How?
He had long hair, he had a beard, like a full beard and fairly long hair.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I have marked as State's Exhibit 74. What is that? Is it a photograph?
This is after we had been going out for a while.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry. What is that a photograph of?
this is the person who said that they were Mick Malveaux that I dated.
And is that what he appeared like when you were dating him?
After he shaved off part of his beard, yes.
Does it fairly and accurately show what he looked like during some point of the time that you knew him?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to move to admit State's Exhibit 74.
Any objection? Admitted.
Is that your dog in the photograph?
No.
Okay. Why was he holding a dog in the photograph?
I was taking care of my friend's dog that night.
What was the defendant like, just his personality-wise?
He was interesting and fun to be with. He was intelligent and gregarious and outgoing and a very smooth talker.
Did you start a dating relationship with him?
Yeah, we were seeing each other fairly steadily after about 3 weeks.
And you said that he was living in Nashville with his cousin. Did you ever go to where he was living?
No, he made it sound like he was sleeping on a pull-out bed or a couch, and that it was a small apartment and he was uncomfortable taking me over there.
Did you ever meet his alleged cousin?
No.
Did you ever meet any of his alleged family members?
No.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about his family?
Yes. Or at least what he said was his family.
What did he say about his father?
He said that he was in the military, I think in the Air Force, and that he had died quite a few years before of a heart condition, I think.
Did he ever say anything about his mother?
He said that she had died a few years before, and I think he said that it was of leukemia. And he would talk about how he was an orphan.
Did he ever say anything about his relationship with his mother?
He indicated that it was a bit fraught, that she had a strong personality.
Okay.
Did the defendant tell you whether he had previously been married?
He told me he had been married before.
Did he say when he had been married?
He indicated it was quite a few years before, and that it was well over and done with.
Did he say when his marriage had ended?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Did he tell you whether he had children?
He said that he had had a miscarriage with his wife, but otherwise he didn't have children.
Did he ever talk to you about nieces or nephews that he might have?
He said that he had a niece that had cerebral palsy, and that she was just great and the best person.
Okay. Did the defendant ever tell you that he had lived in the Atlanta area or in Georgia?
He had indicated that his wife was from Atlanta, so he had lived there for a while with her.
Okay. Where did the defendant tell you he went to school?
To LSU.
Okay. Did he say he graduated from LSU?
I don't know if he told me specifically or if it was assumed.
Okay. And how old did he say he was at the time?
I think he said he was 39.
Did you and the defendant ever go to any football games?
Yeah, we went to the LSU Vanderbilt game.
And can you tell me about the defendant's behavior during that game? Your Honor, I just think this all goes toward the defendant's fraud and his behavior during the course of their relationship. They obviously went to an LSU football game because he had said that that's where he had been to school. And I think that his behavior during that game is just one more of the indications of his dishonesty.
Any response? I sustain the objection. Okay.
Was the defendant working during the course of your relationship?
Yes.
Where?
At Betty's.
What is Betty's?
It's a dive bar.
Okay. What was he doing there? Do you know?
He was a bartender, and he would do all the opening and closing jobs on the days that he worked.
Okay. And how did he pay for things? Did he use a credit card, cash? Can you describe that?
It was usually in cash.
Okay.
It looked like he was using a prepaid credit card at times.
Did he have a driver's license?
He had a paper copy of a license and told me that his was lost and he was just waiting for it to come in.
And did he have that paper license during the entirety of your relationship?
For at least part of it. And I remember asking him like a month or so in, what was going on with that? Like, why didn't he have his real license yet?
Okay. And what did he say?
Oh, something must have gotten messed up or something to that effect.
What did the defendant drive?
Lexus SUV.
Okay. I'm going to show you what I've marked as States Exhibits 75, 76, and 77. Can you tell the jury what those are photographs of?
This is the car that he was driving while we were together.
Do all three of those show the car that he drove?
It looks like.
Okay. Well, do those fairly and accurately represent
what the car that he drove looked like?
Yeah.
I'd move to admit State's Exhibits 75, 76, and 77.
Any objection? Admit it.
What was the defendant's attitude toward this car?
He's very proud of it.
Your Honor, this is the car that the defendant stole from his mother. Again, I think that the relevance, it just goes toward the lie that he continues to live. Additionally, if we go toward malice, the issue of malice.
In what way?
Your Honor, malice can be proven by the events that occurred before, during, and after the murder. And I think that I don't want to say it during the jury, but the way he behaved about his car shows kind of his state of mind during the time that it was in his possession, his state of mind as to how he felt about taking it on that Friday on February 1st, 2019.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to step into the jury room for just a moment, please. Ask the question again.
Yes. What was the attitude what was the defendant's attitude about this car?
He was very proud of it. And he seemed to use it as a way to bolster his credentials, that he was this persona that he had created. He was a successful executive who was just taking some time out to be a writer, but he was still this very high-class person and not someone who was a bartender at a beer bar.
Okay. Can I ask you to step out into the witness room for just a moment, please? Ms. Wolf-Gruber.
Judge, I think that this additionally includes an objection of speculation. The testimony that she just gave was, it seemed to, which is showing a speculation of what she believed. And additionally, just a separate issue, I would ask that Ms. Block not exceed objections in front of the jury.
Well, I asked her to explain her objection. There's no other way to do that before I could tell whether or not I needed to send them out. Yeah.
As to the issue of speculation, I believe that Ms. Richardson was testifying as to what she observed, her perceptions of the defendant's attitude. But again, I think that the defendant during this entire time was living a false life. And this is one of the ways that he was attempting to do that. This is one of the ways that he created this McMalvo character.
Well, the issue is that he's not charged with theft in this case. He's not charged with absconding. He's charged with a homicide. And the original objection was as to relevance, whether or not this is relevant to the issue that this jury has to decide. And I still don't see how this is her testimony about what he may or may not have told her about this car is relevant to the ultimate issue in the case.
Okay.
So,
May I ask her if he ever said where he received the car, where he got the car?
what's she going to say?
I actually don't recall.
Okay. Well, we would need to know that before
Okay.
you ask her.
Okay. Would you go ask him?
Yeah.
That's right. Your Honor, he told Miss Richardson that he had purchased it off a family member.
Do you want to be hard on that?
So I think it still goes towards relevance. There's not, as the court said, a charge without tier, there's no charge of light. So I don't think it goes towards the ultimate issue.
I agree.
Okay.
Can you ask your investigator to bring her back in?
Okay.
You can bring the jury in.
The defense would make a request to ask the court to strike the state's response.
Strike what response?
The response given by Ms. Plott regarding the indication of intending to enter the evidence for the purpose of malice, and I believe there was.
No, that was her response to my question about how is this relevant?
I understand.
I will sustain the objection on the record when the jury comes back in. But I think the record needs to reflect that we had a discussion about her response to your objection. That's the way objections work. You all may be seated. I will sustain the objection.
Did the defendant ever stay at your home?
He would spend the night there sometimes.
Did you all ever discuss moving in together?
We talked about it at some point.
And did the fact that he was staying at your house cause any issues between the two of you?
It did shortly before the marshals picked him up.
And what was the issue?
He was there all the time. It was getting to the point where it wasn't just, a night here and there or a few nights during the week. He was there all the time. And I wasn't ready for that in our relationship, and he wasn't paying rent, and we hadn't talked about moving in together there.
On August 31st, 2019, Georgia played Vanderbilt in Nashville. Do you recall that weekend?
Yes, ma'am.
The relevance is that his demeanor was one of trying to stay very low-key that weekend. I don't know that I should say this in front of the jury since an objection has been made, but I can explain outside their presence.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to get your steps in this afternoon. May I ask you to go back to the jury room. Okay. Can I ask you to step into the witness room again?
Your Honor, before she does, would the court hear her answer to that question? I think it'll make sense.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, just kind of a follow-up question. So that weekend, Georgia played Vanderbilt. Were there folks from UGA in the Nashville area?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the defendant's demeanor that weekend?
He was out of sorts. He whined about going into work. He didn't want to leave the house. He didn't want to get lunch. He wanted to miss his shift at the bar that night and complained about having to go in and talk to all these people.
All right. I don't have any further questions.
Oh, all right. If you can step out. I thought that you mentioned before that this was around the time that he was arrested.
This was on August 31st. He was arrested on September 30th. They found his mother's car on September 26th.
Okay. All right. So I think we're getting a bit far afield with this testimony. I think, sort of leading up to this is relevant to some degree, but I think you're getting a little bit far afield with this line of questioning because he's charged with a homicide. He's not charged with theft. He's not charged with fraud. He's not charged with absconding. So these questions have to be somehow related to whether or not he committed this homicide, because that's what the issue is for this jury to decide.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Sure.
Yes. Evidence of flight is always admissible. We believe that this goes to it's his continuing evidence of his fleeing. He did not want to be seen during that weekend, potentially by anyone from Georgia. And, when I spoke to Kelly initially about this, she's like, in retrospect, I realized he didn't want to go outside of the house because he was afraid of being seen by somebody he may know or who may be, with UGA and recognize him.
Well, and now you're getting into her speculating about why he didn't want to go out.
Yes, so, and it would just be our argument to the jury.
You can make the argument. You can make reasonable inferences from the evidence is certainly allowable as far as argument goes, but now we're not only talking about something that may not be relevant. Now you're talking about her speculation about why, because she never said that she asked him why he didn't want to go for his shift, or she asked him why he didn't want to leave the house.
I'm sorry, I don't plan on asking her about what she realized in retrospect.
I understand, but your explanation of why you're asking her the questions leads to speculation. So you're eliciting speculative testimony from her because she doesn't know why he didn't want to leave the house.
No, and the issue was that he was acting very peculiarly that weekend, and I think that would be...
That's not relevant, Ms. Potts.
Okay.
Is there anything else you're going to ask her? Because I don't want to keep...
I plan on asking her
in and out.
when and how she learned that the defendant was wanted for murder.
Okay. Was she present or was she anywhere around when he was actually arrested?
His mother's car was found near her house in her neighborhood, parked right in front of her house. But she did not learn she just learned after he was caught from a local news site.
Okay. Any objection about any of that?
I don't know what the relevance is if she's not with him at the time of his arrest. And she's reading things on the news and reading on his hearsay. I don't think there's relevance to it.
Okay. Why is it relevant?
Just to
how
show
she learned.
Just to show how the relationship ended. Just to kind of put closure to her testimony.
But how is that relevant?
No, I understand. I'll ask when the relationship ended and why it ended. I'm just trying to explain the timeline to the jury. And I think that, by stopping kind of in the middle of her testimony, it kind of draws that question.
Do you have an objection to her asking, when did the relationship end?
It's not to asking when.
Okay. I think you can ask her when the relationship ended. And I think you mentioned before you were going to ask her whether she'd had any further contact with him since he was arrested.
Yes.
I think do you have an objection to that?
No.
Okay. So you can ask her that. You can ask her, how did the relationship end and whether or not she's had any further contact with him.
All right.
Anything else?
No, Your Honor, not from the state.
Judge, is the question of the end of the relationship just to clarify is when the relationship ended, correct?
Yes.
Not how.
Well, I think if she says when it ended, it's pretty reasonable to think that it happened after he got arrested.
I guess to me there's a distinction between asking when and then the timeline.
So here's the thing, though, Ms. Wolf-Gruber. It's clear that at some point he was arrested, and the question about whether or not she's had any further contact with him, I don't think she's going to say that they continued their relationship after he was arrested. So doesn't it stand to reason that that's when it ended and that's why it ended? You don't want Ms. Pott to ask her about any issues that happened before he was arrested. So what else is the logical reason for it to have ended?
I understand that. I think that there's a question of how and whether that's an inference or whether that's stated.
How it ended is that he was arrested.
I understand.
So you have an objection to her saying that?
Not that.
Okay. All right. Mr. Queen, did you want to say something? As I told you before, microphones are very sensitive, so I can hear you. So if you want to say something that we need to address before I bring the jury out, now's the time to do it.
My only fear is that if only she gonna keep us something that ended on this day was the last time I saw him, how it ended, he got arrested. But Ms. Potts sort of inferred that she's gonna say, I saw on TV, and that he got.
I've already said that's not relevant. She's not asking her about how she found out that he was suspected of this homicide.
I agree, Judge.
Right.
But it sounds like the witness has already primed her, I guess, testimony to say that I found out he got arrested, She's going to throw in the extra. So she may need to be, I guess, informed that it ended when he got arrested. As opposed to saying it ended when he got arrested and I saw it on TV and
Okay, so you want Mr. Emmons to go outside and tell her not to say that she saw it on the internet or on TV?
Yes, Your Honor, just an abundance of caution because her answers have been a bit extended from just the simple questions she's asked.
Okay. Anything else you want him to tell her?
No, Your Honor, I'm good with that.
Okay, all right, Mr. Emmons.
Yes,
You're listening to the trial of Richard Merritt from the Hidden Killers podcast on the True Crime Today network. Press subscribe now and get ad-free episodes by upgrading to our premium experience through Apple Podcasts. More next.